Local.
Boom, boom.
Boom,
Hey,
boom,
hey.
boom.
We're on
Happy
like Donkey Kong.
Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Yes.
We have been chilling out. We have been, God, how long have we been talking so far? We've been talking for 3 hours?
Uh,
3 hours?
yeah.
Two and a half.
2.5. Two
Sometime
and a
we're going to
half.
record, sometime we're going to record our pre-show. That would form the perfect basis for a paywalled set of
Yes.
content,
Like
which
you
is the,
just
the
like
crazy
listen to us
pre-show.
ramble
Oh,
about
and get
random
ready.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is where life shit gets worked in. You don't
Yes.
have to pay for that. It's
You have to pay for that.
That's
Through the
valuable.
nose,
That's
through the
my
nose.
shit. That's my
Exactly.
shit.
We're like doxing ourselves over and
Yeah,
over and over.
yeah, over and over and over again.
Spiritually doxing ourselves.
Yeah, spiritually doxing yourself. That's what it is. It is like,
Totally.
oh my god.
It's totally true. We've got some rails. We've got some rails, my friend.
Yes.
We've got rails, and the rails we've got rails here for this model. We can continue speaking of
Train rails.
train rail.
Fun,
We're gonna have
fun
these
trips
rails.
through some human psyche environments. What are we doing?
Dude,
Lightning
this
in
is
a
our
bottle.
lightning in a bottle. And today's about the lightning. Today's all about the lightning. And it was so, I developed this perspective on the electromagnetic spectrum over many years of teaching it because there was the deeper you get into what an electron is, you get to this very simple truth that we don't know. Like when someone just uses the word electron, like it makes you sound like you've got it all figured out. Like, yeah, you named it. Like it's a phenomena that we are studying, and we do not. You cannot compare it to just like objects and things in your environment. Like we live in a world of objects, and this thing has a wave nature, and there is a thing that's happening between those two that is a flux that we do not understand. Like that's the
Right.
bottom line. So it's a mystery. And when you flip the electricity on and your lights go on, we have containerized and channeled the
Yeah.
electrical nature, but that doesn't mean we understand it.
We've created a pipe to
Yeah.
to push it through
Yes.
to play with this phenomena in a controlled, super controlled way
Yeah.
that we can engineer all sorts of nice,
Down
cool
to
shit.
tools shit like this broadcast down
Yes,
to
like
the
all of
near
this,
atomic
these
level.
bits.
These bits are mediated by the electrical nature flowing through a pachinko machine. Pachinko machines, those Japanese pachinko machines, they put the balls at the top and they go.
Oh yeah.
That's what a computer is. It's a pachinko machine. It's like a bunch of gates, and the
Yeah.
electricity takes the route that the logic determines. So when you type it, you're typing. What you're doing is you're changing gates, and the water flow of electricity essentially is going in different ways.
Different ways.
Different
Look at
ways.
that, yeah.
So it's the same in our brains. Our brains are computers at one level. Computer uses a 0 and a 1. Your body's DNA uses GATC. These 4 amino acids. So we're like a quaternity thing, and these computers are like a binary thing. Yeah.
Nucleotides.
and these quantum E's are like a 0 to 1 thing. They're like a probability thing. But that's just the way our math reflects back to us what E is. We'll probably come up with better math in the future to actually describe what's going on. But Eric Weinstein, when he was talking about his theory of everything, he kept talking about the circle and everything. Why would there be a hidden circle? And then like Joe Rogan would go like, well, he would get him confused. And he's alluding to the electromagnetic spectrum being a gauge system, meaning that it is a ubiquitous system. Meaning if I vibrate it here, it vibrates where you are and where everything is. And there might be time-based influences coming back and forward.
Envelopes of those gauges like mixing with each other.
It doesn't stop.
Inside of everything.
Yeah. And what we are, these dancing, 10 trillion cells talking things, we are a dance between the protons and the neutrons and this electrical field at the atomic level. That dance creates chemistry, which creates molecules, which creates simple systems, which pile together to make complex systems, which systems come together to make humans. And if you weighed the DNA in our body by weight, we're like 80% DNA that isn't ours. Like the pattern that we're doing, and like 80% of the DNA in us is like bacteria and other kinds of things.
So many other.
Yeah. So this you that's you is really like a performance from that level out in a
Yeah.
certain way.
You got mitochondrias that are almost their own little organisms, and they
Yes,
are
their own little
do a
universe.
central function for you, helping you transform, you know,
I have
sugars into usable energy.
I have tripped out over the last few years over this one thing that always trips me out so deeply. I'll be out on my front porch, I'll be in front of the sun, I'll be contemplating what the sun is. It's nuclear explosions, and the light that's hitting me happened like 8 million years ago. It's like it's nuclear explosions in the core of that thing and so much gravity that I'm reading the newsprint, these photons that are coming
Light.
out, they're millions of years old. They were created in an ancient
Are they
time.
consistent? Like those explosions, like how's
Oh, does it change?
Yeah,
That whole system
photons are
changes.
different.
Yeah. That's why we get coronal mass ejections and like the X-ray bands
I don't even know
change.
what that is.
Oh, a CME, that is an explosion on the sun that creates a big X-ray
Those
pulse.
little. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
And if
Not
that
an
hits our
X-ray.
planet, we go like the Carrington event in the 1800s, I believe, was when there was a coronal mass ejection event from the sun, and we had telegraph lines up at those times, and a bunch of telegraph lines burnt, and operators who were connected via their headsets got electrocuted and set on fire because the sun let out all this energy, and all you needed was a strip of copper to collect it and focus it, and it caused all this havoc and this burnout. Our modern computers and communication networks would just go bloop in most cases. Like it would just because they're at the atomic level. It doesn't take that much energy to fry 10 atoms across. You could probably come up with that bioelectric amount of energy to do that. Yeah, exactly. right.
Very delicate.
Right.
Delicate glass here.
What's cool about computers is at the hardware level, there's always mistakes happening, but the algorithms that run the physics of the like how a hard drive works takes that into account. And so you always have these things like checksum bits. When you have a protocol on the internet, you can actually, if a packet comes and it's not right, the math doesn't line up, it asks for it again and it re-requests it. It's there's all this noise at the physical level, but we can distill it through algorithms up to this pure like
pure user interface.
This pure signal level, like all signal. But it is very messy. It's very messy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what life is, dude. That's like, what's the difference between the electron that's inside of you and the electron inside this system?
When I was in high school, I was reading a lot of physicists. I was reading a lot of physics textbooks. I was around a bunch of kids that were into physics. Like they would love to trip out on physical theories and talk about all this stuff. And I really got deep into it for a number of years. And then at a certain point, I just had this realization, and it was this, that all of the theories that we've come up for physics and all the knowledge that we've been able to accumulate since the 14 and 1500s when we invented science, barely 1500s, that the scientific method and all the technology that's come out of it and all that stuff, that can be used to describe certain things at certain times. But that doesn't really touch or start to touch feeling and emotion. And I'm like, yeah, because like my poetic sense of the universe isn't really described in those equations. Maybe it could be one day, but that shit's maybe 500,000 years in the future. God knows what in the future. But the actual process of living life requires a lot more arts than just science. You need more than just science to actually make a life work. And there was a lot of, this is when I was in the 90s, but there was a lot of sort of retreat into this concept of, this atheistic kind of view of the universe, like it's all mechanicalistic. And I lost the Peter here. So hello, dear audience. I'll finish this thought and then we'll go on to something else when we get back. It was this feeling like, oh, science, as awesome and wonderful and cool as science is, it still has a limit. And that limit doesn't really encounter most of the stuff or a lot of the stuff that relates to social dynamics and actual interpersonal and person-to-person relationships. So the real rich part of life is human connection, and you're never going to get an equation that, meaningfully moves back over into the other one. We've got Peter back. He's coming to the front. Here he is. Here he is. Here he is. Awesome.
There we go. We had some error.
Woo! That was the first one in like 3 hours. That's right. That's right. The protocols failed us, but connecting my little piece of the universe, which is these photons, with your little piece of the universe, which is those photons.
Yes. We had some error.
Yo, so I just like putting a bow on that last one. I went through this period of time where I realized that um, science itself, as awesome and cool, and the cool telescopes and the vision of the universe you can have through science, it sort of has something to say, maybe in some times, about the human experience. But the experience of being a human is actually quite broad and is not encapsulated in what we've understood so far. But god dang it, and maybe one day it will. Who knows? Maybe
Maybe.
we'll need a lot more processing power to get there, I'm sure.
Well, we just gotta talk about it more and
Talk about it
integrate it
more.
into
Yeah.
culture. That's it.
Have you dove into any of that Lex Friedman stuff in the library on the how algorithms learn and machine learning?
Deep learning.
Yeah.
Deep learning. I've
Have you?
I've listened to like definitely the first. He's got like a Trinity set
Yes.
playlist of 3. I don't know whether I listened to all
Okay.
3 of them, but I know I've listened to 1 or 2.
Way back in the day, in our first episode, we talked about Google Voice, and this is a pretty good explanation of it. And let's put this all in the category of how machines might be able to learn science. Okay, so Google Voice, what Google Voice is it is a machine learning algorithm that was created to translate sound into text, and it's really, really good. And it's also the Google engineers really identified it correctly as this important piece of human computer interface. Like when computers
Right.
can understand language, computers can involve themselves more deeply in human society because they'll speak the language essentially. So, but how do you do it? There were all these, there was this previous generation of ways of solving this problem that were just like expensive, millions of dollars, because of all of the time you had to record and have volunteers show up and say these words that the computer knew what the words were. So the main problem you had to solve was have a set of words that the computer already understands, which is in a digital format, and then connect that to the audio sound of someone saying it. And that is the input data that you put into the machine learning algorithm to train it to know what that is. And the way that they did it was, when I was growing up, there's this thing called 411. Did you ever pay for 411, like $1.10?
No.
Okay, let's say you want a number for a pizza place across town, and you pick up the phone, you dial 411, and it says doo doo doo. That'll be $1.25. You go yeah, and then it says, and then an operator comes on. Hi, what do you need? I was like, I need pizza across town or whatever. And they're like, okay, cool. Here's the number. We'll connect you. Okay, great. And then it connects you, and there's this little fee on your bill for this. Google said, we will give you free 411. It was 1-800-GOOG 411. And when you typed 1-800-GOOG 411, they paid for the toll, they paid for the 800 call, they paid for the connection on the other side. So it was like free long distance anywhere in the world at a time when there was still
so
those
they
fees.
paid for the recording.
They paid for everything. And what you did is you would get on there and say, hi, what can I find for you? And it was a computer's voice. And it says, I want Pete's Pizzas across town. And he goes, okay, cool. Is that number 1, Pete's Pizza, 1027 West Main Street, or 2, Pete's Pizza, 124 West Broadway Street, or whatever. And you would press 1, 2, 3, or 4 to get connected to the right Pete's Pizza. Now the computer has all the pieces. It knows what the digital sound is. It knows what the sound of your voice was, and you just validated it for free. And all it cost Google was the price of connecting your call. So for pennies on the dollar, they built this algorithm that kicked everything's ass, and they did it. They
411 industry.
Toot sweet, baby, just like all like real fast. And yeah. It was like over with. It was they
one
won
shot,
that.
one kill.
they exactly. They only had to run it for like a couple years, and then they moved on because they could get other data sets. They'd exhausted that data set. The algorithm had been perfected. So okay,
Evolution.
All right.
Out with the old, in with the new. It's better.
When that algorithm was first made, it was like, call it I forget the numbers, but call it 2 terabytes of data. And that data needed like a big room of computers. It needed a Google data center, and with thousands of computers to process it. So for a while there, when you would have your phone and you'd say, okay, G, and you'd say the word of Google, and when you would say that, I'm trying not to set off all my devices in my room here. But when you would say that, it would then, what would essentially happen is a pipeline would open up between the device and this cloud, and the cloud would sit there like a big brain all the time, and the little device would give it what it thought what you said, and then it would crunch it and give it back the answer. So the processing took this huge amount of silicon for this in silico processing. And what was cool is that your device acted like it was super smart when it was connected to the internet. But check this out. In terms of the shit that Lex Friedman's talking about in some of those videos, he's talking about the evolution of these algorithms and the introduction of new generation of machine learning algorithms. One of these generations of machine learning algorithms so slow down. There are ways of training machine learning algorithms, and you have to give it a data set usually. So what simplest data set is
different ways they attack that data set.
Yeah. That you say, here's 1,000 pictures of a quarter, and here's 1,000 pictures of a dime, and I'm gonna mix them up, and I'm gonna blind the truth, dime or quarter, from you, the algorithm, and you're going to try to figure out what it is, and you're going to take a guess. And when you take a guess, we're going to remove the blind, and you're going to see if you're right or wrong. If you guess right, whatever you did was cool. If you guess wrong, try again. And so it tries all these billions of approaches, and it weights certain approaches based on its success state. But the humans have to define the success state for it to connect, right?
Right.
So
incentives.
Yeah. Okay, so and
incentive structure.
What they can do is they can take like that documentary we'll talk about at some point, is the that one with DeepMind and how DeepMind learned. One of the early DeepMinds was Atari. They literally gave it the Atari controller and the old Atari joystick, and it played the games billions of times, or actually it was only millions. It was only handfuls of millions, dozens of millions. And after a few dozens of millions of attempts, it could play a perfect game of Breakout. Or a perfect game of Pitfall, or whatever game you threw at it, it would figure it out, because it was the same set of data over and over and over again, and all it has to do is just get a little better and know what the win state is, and the game would tell it what the win state is as it went through. Okay, so this is Lex Friedman, and then I'll take a breath here. But Lex Friedman's talking about these generation of machine learning algorithms, and that huge brain that was the voice brain of Google, like 2 years ago, a new generation of machine learning algorithm compressed it down to 60 megabytes. So now, when you get a cheesy phone in the third world that does not have data connectivity, it can download 60 megabytes into it, and that 60 megabytes is the same effect as the 2 terabytes and all the processing. We have no idea how the 60 megabytes does it. You can't look at the 60 megabytes and like reverse engineer
understand
it. No. But you know it does it.
Yeah.
And that's like kind of the key. I mean, maybe some aspects of it, but like in general, it's this little blob of code that when you give it electricity, you can talk and your words come out as text. That's essentially it. It's a pattern of electricity that the computer figured out that goes way beyond anything a human could program. Because when we did it, it took 2 terabytes and thousands of processors. And now it's like, no. One processor, 60 megabytes of space, low voltage, and it's still going. At some point, it'll be like a tic-tac stamp of something. But like when you add vibrations in, it gives you text out. You know, it's like, fuck, dude.
God.
Like,
I wonder what, well, that's because these algorithms find patterns that we can't see.
That's it. Because of repetition. They can take billions of attempts. Billions of
attempts. And
just like a kid learning how to tie its shoes.
Yeah, we're in the age where we have created something that can learn things for us and then teach us how to learn things better.
So a computer that could get its arms around science would be a machine learning algorithm that had some kind of sensor inputs, and it could basically perform science. Like if there was some way of taking a tub of water and tapping on it at the right amount, the right frequency, and because the way you tapped it, the top layer froze somehow, like a Kurt Vonnegut Ice 9 situation. Kurt Vonnegut writes this book, Ice 9, or it's actually called Cat's Cradle, and in it there's this substance called Ice 9. And what Ice 9 is he travels around to all these Civil War reenactment situations, and he's very interested and takes photographs of the ways that cannonballs are stacked. And he visits this one place, and the scientist in the story has stacked the cannonballs a certain way, and he goes, oh. And so he goes into the lab and he stacks water atoms, and what happens is he lowers the freezing point of water from like 100 Celsius to like 40 Celsius. And basically what the problem is if you take Ice 9 and throw it in the ocean, the entire planet would just go crack and would like all freeze. Yeah. And so it was all about the crystal, the the crystalline structure.
Structure.
It was a, what do you call that? A catalyst. It was a catalyst. It lowered the reaction temperature of the chemical reaction of water freezing. But anyway, so if you had a sensor system, a computer could go into a lab and do science with it, if it worked out what the victory state was, it would, yeah, it could learn. So it could, and then
algorithms are catalysts.
Dude, and then what if you could represent water inside of a computer's brain so it didn't even have to have the physics in our world? You could put a perfect a good enough water understanding to do molecular physics inside a computer's brain. It could come up with all kinds of shit for you.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't that crazy? The first person that gets the real general purpose AI, that can do that kind of shit, with the shit that can design the experiments to do that shit, will run everything.
Run everything.
Because in like a fraction of a second, it's gonna go, oh, here's how fusion works, and like here's how your sun works, and it could be like, hey, you want a fusion battery? It's just a battery, and it's like got a sun in it. It's cool. It'll run for a billion years. You're cool.
Here's some blueprints.
Yeah, let's make cars that go to another dimension because we can use like titanium levels of energy, just like jump through personally created wormholes and shit, all that, you know.
Yeah. Rail launch
titanium levels of energy
off mesas in Utah or something.
Woo!
Like
yeah, like Back to the Future, like a ramp. It's like goes off the ramp and then it just disappears into the air. The cars. Yeah. Dude. Okay, so this is a nice introduction. That was very
yourself in.
We're talking about E here. We're talking about electricity, right? So that is in our 4 situation model here. We've got the solo axis between earth and air. We've got the social axis between fire and the water. And one of the, I've got the, that's a bad where's my dance metaphor? The dance metaphor is a really good way to dancing. This is how it works socially. So this ties it back into our education might just be the creating of a stage where a organism, like a mammal, like a human, can enact certain patterns over and over again, validate those patterns, and that is learning. Just like machines can do something similar inside their little brain space, right? So you've got the earth, kind of an earth-based dance. No one's around. It's just you and your soul and God, and you're dancing from the source of everything. That inspires you. You share this with other people. People get together and they kind of do the social thing. They're dancing, but they're also talking and they're
laughing, hanging out.
And they're probably making friendships and exchanging information and making plans for the future and all that kind of stuff.
More erratic.
Yeah. And that's the on the social dimension, meaning there's other people present, that's spontaneous. And then you have structured like the dances of yore, where they would have dun 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 dun, and everybody moves at the exact time.
And everyone went to school and learned those dances.
Yes, you are growing up. Now you see a social protocol. So we're doing this at this time, and what you can do based on that synchronization. Forged.
It's forged dance.
Time is synchronizing you here, and after all of this, you have this solo air performance where people are watching what you're creating, and you've created this gem in a moment, and it inspires people to go off and invent shit and do whatever the hell they're gonna do, right? Raise their kids right, do whatever their other cool shit they're gonna do in life.
Some inspiration fuel.
Inspiration and fuel. They're seeing life happen in beauty, and when life happens in beauty, it rocks the Casbah. That
the what?
It rocks the Casbah. Rock the Casbah. Rock the Casbah. Shirley don't like it. You ever heard this song?
Nope.
Okay, awesome. It's going in the library. I have to look up what it is. I'll sing it to Google. I'll sing it to Google, and Google will tell me what it is. I can't even remember the name, but it'll do it.
Good job. There you go, Google.
Rock the Casbah. Rock the Casbah. I was a young child in the 80s, so I was not paying attention to names and dates.
Yeah.
This is that Tucorio element in the middle that makes it all work. It's the awe, and this is a perfect picture, I think, because these kids are in a state of awe at an electrical miracle around them, which is essentially a bunch. It's nothing. It's just a bunch of lights, but there's so goddamn many.
Bunch of string lights. Yeah.
It is so much light that the brain's like, it's like an opening and it's an inspiration, right? That has been my subjective experience as I have thought about electricity. Electricity and the nature of the electrical phenomena is that it is an open-ended, infinitely creative thing. I mean, what we just described with machine learning, being able to interpret human text and speech and
Right.
turn it into text. It's an electrical phenomena in a pattern of atomic crystals.
Yeah.
Ah, it's like, it's like it's starting to look a little like intelligence, like the stuff we're
Yeah.
doing, you know?
Well, what is it? What is life? Yeah, you get into the question of what is life? Just organized information.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe. And
But
maybe
that's
life is like involves the biology, the biological level. It's like got some
yeah,
physics
at
involved.
the
Yeah.
what
I think there's
or
something,
at the planetary level, like
yeah.
whatever. It's like the whole environment.
Yep.
Oof. So
Love it.
then the spasm of whatever dimension you're in, pretty much,
Boom,
and how
boom.
order works in that dimension.
Totally. This is so,
Wow.
to choreo is the craft or the art of create the art of the heart. It's a verb, and it's the at the middle of this social event that is learning. You are to choreo. You are to choreoing.
Choreoing.
You are taking something from inside. You are infusing it with the electromagnetic spectrum to produce something in this world that you can show becomes a craft or a technique, an art form, and you have taken it from one world, you've taken it to another world, and it's
It's the
it's
fusion
natural.
in the middle of balancing it across and moving the energy into these different spaces to then got
Get something,
something. I
and
got something.
I got something. I got it. Aha, I got it.
And to share it and inspire you with it.
Totally. And there is a natural thing that happens at the peak of that experience when the electricity is cracking. You cannot help but tell someone about it.
Mhm.
There's like what I think Duncan Trussell was saying, that one of the side effects, if they ever legalized DMT, that was just put on the side of the bottle, is that when you see like that source of everything through a DMT experience, which I wouldn't recommend, but like I wouldn't like push anyone in that direction. But when you see it, one of the side effects is you can't help but tell everybody about it. You can't shut up about it.
Mm, yeah.
It's like when you it's like a life-changing realization. There's almost
Yeah.
something written into our cells. It's like you gotta like start,
Yeah, share.
you gotta
You have to
share.
share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's
So
natural.
it's because of the love
It's because of the love. And the love
giving
is
out
connected.
the
Dude,
heart.
our next order of the towel, we're gonna get into probably two order of the towel snow. We're gonna get into why that electricity has to become love in the human body, because it passes through the heart. Like if it's working right and it correctly passes through the heart, it will enter the human nervous system as love, which is an open vagus nerve and a coherent stream of electrical pulses into the brain, which will optimally support the brain in perceiving and understanding its
Yeah.
environment. And after a while, it starts to look like omniscience, honestly.
Yeah. In it's directly related to how you're able what your attention is and what you're able to attend to with that attention. How it
Nice.
streams your intuition.
Peter, if you would please join me, let's go on a deep dive into that electrical phenomena. This is a trip that I put together a couple years ago, but I keep add to it over the years, and I've tried it out in many different ways. And would you like to go on this adventure, sir?
I would like to take me on this it's just a 20-minute adventure.
It's just a 20-minute adventure. Good luck. Good luck with the 20 minutes. So it starts with that electrical thing. So when you see lightning in the sky, that is a plasma discharge. That is, I think it's 4 or 5 times brighter than the sun. It's like it's a smaller amount of energy than the sun produces, but it is through a process that is way brighter than the atomic process that the sun is going through when it makes light. So when you see that lightning flash of that white light, that blue white light, that is the color of electricity. And that is I had a teacher, Drenville Melchizedek, that for years, when he was trying to get students to connect with the natural flow of energy in their body, he would say, look, that's what you look for. That's what you visualize. Visualize the same color as lightning in like a tube that goes through the center of your spine, goes all the way up and it goes all the way down, really, really large. And it's that is the central conduit of the turning Merkabah light body field. And he was always about there's something about the eyes where it's almost like seeing that blue white shade is the equivalent of connecting with it, is the equivalent of being able to command it inside the body to go here or go there. Paramahansa Yogananda
relating to it.
when he started the Ranchi School for Boys in India, that was his first gig before he came to America to teach Western Christians about God. That was his second gig in life. But the first gig he had was teaching kids about meditation and prayer and yoga. And he would teach them how to concentrate. And the primary technique he would use at the beginning was you would see this same light. Oh, he would have them see it kind of through the third eye and as a like a sun essentially in front of you, and you would draw this in a certain way. You would also draw it in through the back of the head through this medulla oblongata. But anyway, I've got this manual from like 1911, which is his Ranchi School for Boys thing. It's got all this in there. I'm butchering it. You should totally fucking check it out. But what he would do is have these kids concentrate, and they would take this light of the cosmos, God's light, and they would put it in their hands, and they put it in their arms, and then they would put it in their feet and their legs and all the musculature of the body. As a way of saturating oneself, and over practice by connecting with that, the source of Om, like an Om that's coming out of the universe, causing all of this energy, this free energy, connecting that with their physiology and their muscles in their body, they would learn to be able to direct it. But it was always, in terms of the third eye and maybe what its purpose is, it's a lot of it could be considered on one level being able to pattern light. You're sort of that's where all the images are coming together, right? It's like through this thing.
Yeah.
so there's a way that you can sort of ask yourself this question: how does your imagination come up with shit? Like what is like when you imagine something, what's it being formed out of? Is it a subtle light? What is it?
Yeah, what you might have all these lenses in your head.
Yeah.
Of memories and connections and whatnot, but what's shining through to bring them into your spectrum?
How are you applying them? How are you putting this all to use? Because it's in the application of it that you'll have a skill that you can walk away with, a techne, an art or a craft that you can apply in the world. Yeah. So this electricity situation, this starts with the question in Western physics as to the question becomes we call it electricity. But there's all kinds of different words for it all over the place. The Kalahari Bushmen in Africa, Southern Africa, call it Mum. The Japanese call it Seiki. The Chinese call it Qi, as in Qigong. The Hindus call it Kundalini. In the West, the word we have for it is Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is basically when you read the stories of what those other things are and you read the stories about what the Holy Spirit is, like, oh, same. It's like the same. That's like they're talking about the same phenomena. A lot of people, I feel this is true. This is, I think we'll put it this way. After my years-long study of E and electricity and like getting deep as fuck into it, the thing that I came to at the very deep level with it was that it's the study of it is the same thing that Jesus was talking about as the study of the Holy Spirit. Like he said to his disciples, he said, hey guys, I taught you a bunch of cool shit, but like the Holy Spirit will teach you more in one flash than I taught you this whole time. And that is that third eye flash of electrical light moving in and intuitive understanding. Like Paramahansa Yogananda navigated his whole life without really attending any school, not to speak of. He had intuitive understanding of things that was very practical. There's all these miracles around that where like he didn't really speak English, but when he got off the boat from India to the United States, he said a big prayer to his teacher and his teacher said, you'll be do fine. And when he gets off the boat, he can speak English. It's like, wait, what? It's like it's this other octave of spiritual mastery that Paramahansa Yogananda has in relation to the Holy Spirit, to E, that you can, that can like do almost anything.
Sync stuff with you somehow.
Because anything is electrical patterns anyway. Like anything you can actually do. Like if you could float around or something like that, what have you done? You've added energy in a certain way, and you probably haven't like broken the laws of physics. You just added energy in a certain way that made it work, and it's probably all whole at some higher way of looking at it.
Yeah, it just fit. We have a more narrow understanding of physics than you have to remember that it's
a mystery we're still unfolding.
We're still trying to figure it out.
And that is exactly what this guy said. This is Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman won the Nobel Prize for electrodynamics of the electron in 1965, and he said The electron is a theory we use. It's so useful in understanding the way nature works, we can almost call it real. Well, almost. meaning that's the guy who knows what a fucking electron is, and he's like, yeah, we don't really know what an electron is. Like,
Yeah, almost call it real.
yeah, but the process of scientific discovery could go into that horizon for forever. Because once you really know what electron is and how to, that means you'd have control over it. That means you could make things. That might be the principle of like a replicator technology of in Star Trek where they can make Earl Grey hot.
Yeah, anything.
Yeah, it's what are they doing? They're like manipulating material atoms in patterns, and they know how E is going to hold it all together.
Right.
Yeah. Electron is discovered in 1887 by this guy named J.J. Thomson. And there's all these different models. You can literally learn some really good physics by looking at all the models of the electron as they go through time. This is the one called the Rutherford Bohr model, which is, you can see, it's already a hybrid of two people's ideas about the electrons. 1913, it was proposed by Niels Bohr. The concept is that you've got this nucleus, and you know all this from your chemistry days.
Yep.
That this is, you got these protons which have this positive charge. You got these neutrons which have no charge but mass, a lot of mass, and then you've got this electron field that's kind of moving around outside of it.
And these models, yeah, go ahead, keep going.
No, please, after you, buddy.
No. You're walking through these different visuals, but these models are simplistic. When you that diagram is like not, it's not, does not represent what's going on very well.
Exactly. 1913.
This is a little better, but even this is not right.
Well, because our eyes to actually
the right direction.
Yeah. The way our brains work, we like to see things because we can't imagine something that's not a thing, right? It's not. We deal with things. Objects, and we know they're made of smaller things. Like this has got a base and a cap, and you can separate them. And this metaphor only goes so far into our reality, then it dissolves. It's like it doesn't. You don't get thing stuff. You don't get thing logic anymore. It doesn't actually. Logic. Yeah. But
you're dealing with all these forces on that level.
Yeah.
Influence. I need to let my dog out. He's been crying.
Scooby Doo. So, like you're saying, Mr. Peter, we have our understanding of electricity from the point it was discovered and first channeled to the point it is now has definitely improved. We're not there yet, because when we're really, really finally there, we'll have a complete mastery of it, right? And what that means is you'll be wearing clothes that have little lightning bolts going around to like 60,000 degrees for 0.00001 seconds and stuff. So it's safe, but bright as shit,
Safe but crazy.
Safe but crazy.
We have harnessed this energy.
When I was living,
masters.
I was living in Chicago for a while, and I got my shit together and I got out to Batavia, Illinois, and I got to go visit the Tevatron particle accelerator that was a part of the physics laboratory that was out there. And this is the place where the quark, the up or the down quark, was discovered. And there's this book. Oh, dude, I've got situations within situations here. This is a book I picked up for $1. Oops, it's not gonna work. I gotta untorture the image if it's gonna be all about boom. Okay. Facts and mysteries in elementary particle physics. I bought this for a buck. And this is your
knowledge for $1.
There was a time when, we were like this Rutherford Bohr model of the universe here was like the only thing that we really understood about it. So like we basically had gotten our shit together where we're like, hey man, there's protons and neutrons and they're sort of at the hard core, and there's these other things moving around that kind of are like little things, but they're not really like little,
hold
like
it together, but
keep your shit together. Keep your shit together. Right. And like
trade them around.
And what we discovered is that these things actually, like an electron, is actually composed of combinations of up and down quarks. And that we've got up and down quarks, we've got charm and strange particles, and we've got these things called top and bottoms. top and bottoms makes taus and a tau neutrino. They make muon. The charms and the strange make muons and the muon neutrinos, and the electrons and the electron neutrinos. And the neutrino thing, that's a whole other complicated situation, which would be awesome to get into. But the point, the very basic point of this being that we have had many, and we continue to have additional understandings of how this shit gets put together.
Yeah.
And
Breaking it down further and further.
Breaking it down. And the promise is that if you can get to the bottom of heart of everything, like the bare metal of the machine we're all riding on, if you can control that level, you can create replicators like Star Trek. You can open wormholes and travel in the universe. You can do all kinds of cool shit, like shit we'd like to do. So it's worth it to build these big ass particle accelerators and do this stuff. I was there in Batavia, Illinois 1 week before they closed it down for forever because America fucked up its project management in Texas. We were going to build the next generation of particle accelerator in Texas, and there was a certain amount of money that was slated for it. Call it, like, I forget the numbers, call it $9 billion. No, $9 trillion. And they spent like 5 trillion just digging the hole. It's like,
wow,
idiots. I was like, what's going to go in the hole? So they had to stop it. They were like, too expensive, stop it. And the CERN laboratory that goes between Geneva and Switzerland, I think in France too, like, yeah, it goes through several countries. That's where the next generation of particle physics research is being done. That's where they secured the knowledge of the Higgs boson back in 2012, 13. They were calling it the God particle. A lot of those guys hate that. They're like, it doesn't have to do with God. It's just a little particle, dude. But like, they're like, I guess we call everything God. It sells a lot of books. But what they were, what they were kind of alluring to there is they have a model called the subatomic zoo that describes all these classifications of matter and energy that happen. And they were missing
Biology.
They were missing matter. They couldn't figure out how fucking matter worked. And they were like, how does matter work at this level? And they figured out that the Higgs boson is the thing that basically applies the matter concept, that kilograms of matter that we can measure up here. That's the thing at the very smallest level that we can see that holds that together. And they completed the model. So they were like, it's like the God point at the center of it, which is totally cool. That would be actually a good way to think of it. But in any event, they're kind of our modern priests, and they're sort of in their laboratories that it took 10,000 scientists collaborating to produce. When that laboratory was running back in the 90s, they had so much data coming out of it, they had to create a protocol to collect the data at a distance. That protocol became the internet. It became HTML and a whole bunch of other stuff. Yeah, when that machine, that super collider at CERN, when it produces data, it produces so much data that it has to immediately throw out like 99% of the data, 99.9% of the data, and it has to know almost at the atomic level what to focus on that you really want to see, because it's mostly noise. Like, it's not going to be useful. Yeah. And the sensors can't detect everything. They can only detect certain things. So
that's the target really fast through all that data.
Dude, so touring the Tevatron was like super fun. And it's Tevatron because it's a teravolt of energy. It's like this really high, these particles are injected with energy over weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then they manipulate magnetic fields to bring two streams that are going in the opposite directions closer and closer and closer and closer. And then they wait until there's an explosion inside the detector. The explosions happen all through the ring, or there's a point where they cross, and then they try to focus the camera, the sensor camera there. But that camera takes in so much data, it would have to backload even that 0.1% of data it could do. And the necessity to store the data quickly at a distance is why the internet mostly got made. So when we have these pure scientific pursuits of like the fundamentals, we get cool shit like the internet.
Yeah, spin-offs to solve problems.
Exactly. And this
inspiration.
So this whole thing, that Rutherford Bohr model of the atom is totally cool enough to get this model where you've got basically combinations of protons and neutrons in steady numbers. One proton, no neutrons can be a high.
It's like I had a word for it. It's like it's a model that it's like shows symmetry in the system between the different as you add subtract these different
it's a kind of a it's kind of a miracle when you think about it. It's like you're saying
electrons
everything.
in different orbitals.
Yeah, everything is made of protons, neutrons, and electrons.
Right.
And when you go under the covers of that, there's really even fewer particles. There's just these
Right.
up or down quarks, 2 over here, 1 over here gets you a proton, flip them, it gets you a neutron. It's like, wait, it's the same stuff in opposite numbers?
And
Like,
the different arrangements, because these electrons live in different orbitals, and the different arrangement of these orbitals around this center proton neutron mass produce, they can share and trade electrons at these different levels of ease, and so there's all this symmetry across the periodic table and trends of how you learn the periodic table and that those trends give you rules to understand the chemistry going up the chain, and it all starts with understanding how these electrons are organized around these center proton neutron masses, and then we're just going deeper and deeper into that with these particle accelerators to find what are the protons and neutrons made up of, what is the electrons doing, like what's actually happening here.
have you ever heard the estimate on the age of protons? Like how long, once the universe makes a proton, how long does it live? Have you ever heard this number?
No.
It's like the estimate right now is like 15 billion years. The universe is only like the light that we can find is 13.8 billion years old. But
the oldest light out there.
So it's literally possible that the entire thing that is the universe is like all the protons were all born at the same time, and then they're all protons hanging out, and they're going to last longer than the age of the universe. And they're just watching this huge show above them in terms of all the electron fireworks and these neutrons that want to hang out with them. But they're literally the shit we're made of was there at the beginning, and it'll be there at the end. Like not random shit. This my skin cells.
It's in
me. It is though. We're literally made of the stuff that was there at the beginning. It was like, and it'll be there at the end. It's like, it seems like we're made of eternal stuff. Like, so people are like, oh, the body dies. It's like, yeah, but the stuff the body's made of lives forever.
Yeah, this is weird.
Right.
There's a paradox there.
It's like it's all a big wave, and we're just the froth on the top of the wave. We're like talking froth. Woo!
Yeah, just getting splat. In this shit.
It's all surfing metaphors. It's all surfing metaphors.
It's all surfing. It's all wave metaphors. Everything in life comes down to a wave metaphor.
The Zen surfers are like, oh, and they just like got it, and they're like, they're like, it's you're not going to find anything outside of this mastery, this one art,
Yeah, the essence.
The essence, and so. When you take that miracle that is the same stuff repeated in different patterns, just numbers, stuff you could explain to a 3-year-old, 1, 2, 3, or maybe a third grader. It's like that is enough to make our whole periodic table of the elements, and that's exactly where this organization comes from. Just like you were saying, you got when you're talking about the relationships between matter from the simplest matter, which is hydrogen. 1 proton, 1 electron, and then you can also have a neutron involved, which is a different kind of hydrogen. I think it's more stable. And then you got helium, which is 2 protons, 2 neutrons, 2 electrons, and then you get 3 and 4. And you know this story, but there's a huge amount of science back in the 1500s and 1600s that goes right into the discovery of these advanced elements, and these are stories. Every one of these is a story.
All of them have a story, and that's why they have weird names.
Yeah, and these little things can like, for example, on the hydrogen here, you've got the 1, which tells you how many protons it's going to be, and then you've got this weight, this 1.008, and that is that relates to the natural balance of the thing, and it's we're exceeding
for the
atomic weight. Yeah,
where you're getting into the morphic stuff for hydrogen. That's literally what that would end up being, right?
Very cool. It has to do with the weight of the thing, and you can use that number to back into how many naked protons there are and how many neutrons there are. There's something
As a
about
ratio
yeah,
of these weights, yes.
totally, exactly, an
Yep,
average.
to calculate that,
Yeah,
you can, it gets, when you're using the the middle section,
yeah,
in working with ion chemistry, all of that weight stuff,
yeah.
the weights will tell you like how the charges, they affect the charges, because
Yes.
you're dealing with
And when
moving
and when you get into
neutrons, protons around.
you get into your stoichiometry,
Something.
which is the your
Stoichiometry.
stoichiometry. You get all stoichi with your geometry, and you basically can run the equations with, and you're what you're doing is you're counting up the number of atoms in chemical equations. Yeah.
And the total mass.
Yeah.
And balancing across
Yep.
them. Yeah.
The energy requirements for the transformations between different
Yeah.
materials to happen, but all of that, all of our chemistry doesn't happen at the atomic level. It happens at the interatomic level, and just like interatomic level.
That's what you're measuring here.
Here's-
Oh, here's your yeah.
You- Go for it, brother. Say it.
No, go ahead.
No. This is
No,
this
it wasn't.
yeah.
This wasn't what I thought it was, so I'm gonna
Oh,
take
this
a step
one?
back.
This one.
Yeah, that was what I thought you were talking. That's what it was.
It's
That's
it's
what I was
this.
imagining it was.
That's awesome. This one, I literally showed this to a student one time, and he put his hand up and he goes, "My friends and I just figured out how to make a pair of shoes that lets you walk on water, and this is the image we were looking at when we figured it out." I was like, "That's dope. How much were you smoking?" And they're like, "A lot." And I was like, "All right."
Oh my god.
I know.
No, but this is where chemistry starts if you can imagine how this stuff works
Yeah.
and combine it with all of the math,
Yeah.
that's in playing with it in organic chemistry and relating that to biology. That's where it's beautiful. That's where the real dance that is biology.
So what these shapes turn out to be is the mathematical probability that you're going to find an electron in any one given place. And this is another way of saying it. It's like, listen, if you got this hydrogen over here with one, you're get the probability of finding a electron is really high in here, and then it goes down over here. And when you run the math on that, what you basically see is at the atomic level, the very basic interaction, the dance between matter and energy. It's not a bunch of little dumb circles. It's not just spheres. It's flowers, dude. It's like it's
like those sand on vibrating boards that changes itself to the waveforms.
Yes,
exactly like that. What do these numbers in parentheses mean?
That means it's the R, this, and this. So that is this. We are now into quantum shit.
We need to know what those mean.
I think it's like okay. This is if you have second orbital. So it's not it's the first orbital, shell orbital. There's two. You get one solid, and then your second one comes out here, and that is the equivalent of.
This is for hydrogen.
Yeah. That's the equivalent of the shape. So the shape makes the 3D shape makes a little more sense. So what you were probably seeing there was the was this sorry, my tools. The can you see this part? Can you see my little hand moving around?
Yep.
Okay, cool. That's probably the first one you see. That 2 probably means 2 electrons. The first one will cluster here at a high probability. The second one will make a shell here. Yeah. And this is all about shells. And then you get over here into p orbitals. And these p orbitals are they look like this. They look like Vesica Pisces, like 2 circles connecting or kissing in the middle, or where the hell you want to call it. But like it's this geometry that kind of progresses out. And as you add more to this shape, they always follow this pattern. And then you have the Ds. The Ds have this kind of a geometry with these little circles around the middle, these little hula hoops, whoa, 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 when they're doing it. And then you've got the your f orbitals out here, which have all these cool.
All these orientations you gotta remember are all on the same
stacked
axis.
That's
axes.
it.
So
one over the next.
So when
the circles in the middle, the circles out here
matters because of that. This is where all of these forces are residing inside of these bubbles, so they can only like interact in their like orientations.
So if you go back to this and you're down here, you're in simple shit. But when you're up here with 108 protons, the first set go in, the first
Yeah.
so many number go into these certain shapes. So you've got
Right.
spheres within flowers, within hula hoops, within, and it all just,
Yeah.
by the end of the day, that it's like this, it's this breathing,
Breathing,
interactive,
resonating, yeah,
it's like
electron field.
it's you're nesting complexity within complexity within complexity within complexity. And what they'll probably find is that there's harmonies between these things. Like the reason why carbon is where life is because that's a sweet spot in the number of protons electron balance you have, and you're sort of tapping into one kind of field which gives carbon the properties which make it the sugar that we use for life, and it also is the thing that plants produce when they collect sunlight. What we'll probably find in a greater science that is yet to come is that there are these harmonies between these levels and these structures and shapes, and you can account for these higher order
this
properties.
is where like playing with crystalline structures of objects,
Yeah,
the order that you're able to create with the objects, that's why carbon is the sweet spot, is because you can make these carbon chains that are super strong.
yes,
and go on for however long you want them. And we've built, and our biology has tools to craft and create these chains and cleave
Yes.
them and do all these chemistry that it all works around carbon.
Have you ever seen those animations of the machines?
Strength of 4, 12, 3.
Totally.
Whoa!
Well, and our computers are just binary, but humans have 4 base pairs. And so we're this, and we get these little atomic machines that make that copy DNA and that, like you're saying, make sugars, like break down sugars and do it's this symphony of pattern harmony. There's a language all the way down in terms of use and function, right? Like for all of this stuff we're built on. I know.
And they fit together. And if you think about those bubbles and what the bubbles of carbon look like, they fit together really strongly,
Totally. So those shapes are so very important, and not all of them are perfect like the Platonic solids
symmetrical links.
But you got to always remember that this stuff is, we draw it or we animate it in 3D. It is a 4D effect. It's hard to capture exactly how fucking cool it is, because it's not just that you went from the point source, which was the proton, whatever it is that, the proton that is eternal. Okay. It's a great God metaphor, but but anyway, it's there, and it's been there since time began, and it'll be there when time ends. And then around it is this dance of energy. And that dance of energy is what glues the whole thing together, but it's never static. It never holds still. Our pictures hold it still, but it's always moving, always dancing. There will be no time when it slows to nothing. Like maybe that's the heat death at the end of all things.
Well, that's what energy is. Energy is that heat vibration, pretty much. No, that's not right. But the easiest way to dispel energy is through heat. So if there's no heat, there's not a lot of energy.
One time I half accidentally took 9 grams of dried mushrooms, very concentrated.
Half accidentally.
I was half thinking it through, and I gave myself 9 dried grams of mushrooms, which the maximum, like Terence McKenna upper limit is 5. And the real reasonable is like 1.5 to 2.5. You're fucking gonna end. You're gonna watch shit end at about 3 or 4. Okay. I took 9 half accidentally, and I didn't take mushrooms for a while after that. But what I ended up experiencing was a kind of, you ever seen those movies where they zoom out from the planet Earth and you see like, oh, there's the solar system, and oh, there's the galaxy, and oh, there's the galactic nebula cluster, and oh, the supercluster, and oh, it just keeps going like that. It was like that, except to these levels I can't even put into words. And I was like, I was literally watching time, space, everything itself unfold to the very last moment. And it was like the sound at the end of the orchestra where it's like dun dun,
it just held,
and they hold the note, an infinite sustain. I literally was there at this in my theater, my singular theater seat, watching all things, and I was literally watched it all just recede back to an infinitely quiet background. I literally watched the entire thing end, and there was nothing, and it was like, yeah, the heat death of the universe. And then imagine my
Ran out
surprise
of
when
juice.
I woke up the next morning and I was awake with my wife next to me. I was like, holy shit! Like I was like, gotta make some changes around here. Like, but anyway, I was really
It's
surprised.
real?
I was really surprised when I opened my eyes again. I was like, wait, what? Like, it's not over? That's weird. That's really weird.
Yeah, it's like you died.
I wouldn't. That's why I don't. Mushrooms. Like they're such a randomizer in so many ways, but and unpredictable in so many ways. But
Yeah,
I know
they're
people love them.
magic. I don't.
They are magic. That's true statement.
Even Paul says they're magic.
They're to go through that experience and then be like, they're not magic. Like, what's the other word you'd use?
Yeah, what's the other word you'd use, bro?
What do you call it? A hyperdimensional consciousness
a handle
transfer
on
device?
this.
Like,
Yeah.
what is it? A self-unfolding infinite tesseract koan of love? Like, what are we talking about here? Like,
And why does it go dark sometimes? Like, what's going on?
like what's your
What
creation?
path is each? What veins is this drug surfing on?
Right. There's when I do mushrooms,
What
many times
waves are you tapping into?
many times the psilocybin connection, whatever that is, in the psychology, the consciousness, the neurology, whatever that connection
Yeah.
is, it's very scoldy with me almost every trip. It goes,
Yeah,
it's like
It's harsh.
a little, it's very scoldy. It's like,
Can be
you dumb
harsh.
human. It's like, let's take a trip down your consciousness tree. You're basically the star on top of the tree, like, ha la la la. But do you know that you're a part of a giant ass fucking Christmas tree? And then
Right.
and then it shows me like all the levels down to the atomic, and I'm watching universes of bacteria make the food that I run on. Like,
Right.
you know, and I'm like, serotonin. And I'm like, okay. And then it's like, and it holds me down there many times at this almost molecular level, being
Yeah.
like, this is actually
You
what's
always
going
feel
on.
like you always feel like you're like growing out of whatever you're around. You're just like,
It's always
Dark.
terrifying.
feel
It's
very
always
it's
it's humbling, and I always come out of it like, ah, like,
yeah.
you know, like what is it like? The illusion of self that we perpetuate with our when we put on the persona of social interaction and we pretend I'm Reverend Paul and you're over there, you're Peter, and we're separate things. It's like we're like, let's tell stories and make cool shit, you know. It's like
Yeah.
it's
It's stripped away.
it's quite the story. It's quite the
Stripped
story.
away. Yeah, and that's I don't know. That is what makes mushrooms different than acid. Because acid, you could like
Surf.
feel like the better you are at surfing it, the better you are at
I remember that.
creating your own like you could feel it can like inspire you by how much you feel like a master of your domain. Like
Yeah,
it's interesting.
it's very zen. It's very zen.
Yeah.
It's like Zen and the Art of LSD Maintenance. There's this book called Zigzag Zen about US Zen masters, and it's all about their psychedelic roots. So like Ram Dass, who was Richard Alpert, and he was actually friends with the guy who wrote Emotional Intelligence and Social Intelligence. In that other The Order of the Tao, we're talking about emotion. We're going to talk about emotional and social intelligence, and that's written by Daniel Goldsman. And he was with Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass, on the voyages that they went to bring LSD to their guru in India, and they gave him LSD, and he's like, that doesn't do anything. They go, maybe we gave him the wrong amount. And they gave him a horse doctor load of LSD. And he's like, nah, doesn't really do much. And that book Be Here Now that Ram Dass wrote, it was like it has three parts. The first part's all visual, it's like a cartoon. The second part's like written, and the third part's like haiku and poetry. I forget what the third one is.
That's
but it's like this, but it's very LSD inspired. And anywho, I'm gonna really need some help. What started this thing?
The acid. I was gonna say like, yeah, the loops, bro.
The loops, bro. The loops, bro. Bro, it's the loops. It's the loops.
It's
LSD.
funny how they rail each
Psychedelics
other.
and Buddhism. So many of the current Buddhist masters in America were inspired to pursue their Buddhism in many cases from psychedelics. And so this book, Zigzag Zen, talks about some of the history of that, how there's a
Mhm.
connection between these psychedelic openings and death experiences of the small self and all this stuff that is is very well grounded in the practice of Buddhism and meditation and this kind of stuff.
Yeah. But it's interesting they give that guy acid and he's like, doesn't make a difference. What does that say about acid, or like what's going on during that trip? Like,
The conclusions that they came to when they asked themselves the same questions were something like, this dude, Karoli Baba, Neem Karoli Baba, who was like an incarnation of Hanuman for the people who loved him. Hanuman is this Hindu helpful god. It's like a monkey, but it's like a doing kind of god. It's like a manifestation kind of god. It's this prince. Many times, a lot of times, the Hindu archetypes are like forces in the universe. What physicists might give the name tau neutrino. They're like, well, we call that one, Ganesh. Like, whatever.
Yeah.
it's like there's shit tons of parallels. It's spooky when it's like spooky.
Yeah.
It makes sense that the long-term preserved stories in the spiritual heritage of India, which might be the longest like collective narrative in humanity, actually reflects the fundamental building blocks of life. That would make sense to me. If there was some connection between the micro and the macro,
it would
resonate
between the two.
Yeah.
And that's why lots of like that lady who was Lex was asking a scientist about what the next like what the next revelations in physics would be. Would they have some resounding like tell about consciousness or not, like what would they unlock something about consciousness? And I think he's asked several people that, and I think the consensus is quite possibly.
Can you imagine how much cheaper?
A lot of parallels. Yeah.
Can you imagine how much cheaper it might be to teach a computer about all you'd have to do is give it describe one force, because all the forces and it's all interacting with each other. So you can have a grand theory of everything, but before you have a grand theory of everything, you probably have a good map of some little areas. And like our quantum mechanic map is good enough to give us lasers, which is in fucking so many communications technologies. That's how the fiber works, is lasers. And that's why we can have this high bandwidth conversation across the country, is because of lasers and the fiber optic technology that is atomic level technology in terms of how it guides light.
Cable technology.
Exactly. They make it in satellites now. They have satellites that their job is they can make it in microgravity, and they spin these perfect fiber optic cables that will probably use they'll be like next generation fiber optic cables made in zero gravity, essentially. Yeah, because of the way the atoms arrange.
Manufacturing in space.
Yeah, space manufacturing. Yes, absolutely. So what happens
right now?
Yeah, there's space manufacturing right now, totally. And dude, okay, so what you're talking about when you're talking about the engineer this level, right? You're like, here's a salt crystal. That's a salt crystal.
Table salt.
That's table salt crystal. That's a table salt crystal. That's a table salt crystal. That's a table salt crystal. And what these are is the bonds between sodium and chlorine. So
chlorine is big, sodium is small.
And these are the patterns. This is a Z0. This is some of that language of how you describe the crystalline structure, right? With the sizes and such. And so these atoms
are ions.
Okay, that makes sense. Like it's got a charge, and that's what the charge.
So the charges are balancing the charges are so balanced that they create these.
You can whiteboard this shit if you want.
Yeah, perfect structures.
There's a button you can press where you can annotate on there, where you go. Let me see if I can figure it out. You go draw, and I'm gonna get this big wavy brush, and I'm gonna choose this color, and then you can go like. I really dig this piece of that thing over here, so it's over there too, and it's also coming back over this way, and that's how we're gonna make this display work.
Yeah, I have no idea how to do that. But
don't worry about it.
But no, that's these charges and the balance of the mass between these charges and the orbitals are what allow these structures to be made. It happens.
these are
It's the
it's an
chemistry.
echo. It's a
Yeah,
the chemistry is
It's-
the beautiful
it's-
piece. Yeah.
it's
But-
the, yeah, all that's what makes solids, all these solids,
Yeah.
these pure ones are cool, look cool, quartz and shit. All
These are echoes. So we were this is kind of tying that back into the platonic solid situation that we were talking about. You do see in some mineral composites this echo of this platonic ideal out through the raw
structure, yeah.
the raw material. This would be a tetrahedron. It's got, or a tetrahedron. This is an octahedron, an 8-pointed object.
Mhm.
This is a hexahedron, a 6-pointed object. This is a dodecahedron, 12-pointed, and many viruses are icosahedrons.
Yeah, icosahedrons. the
And so
tops.
yeah, this is
Yeah.
so you've got tetrahedron, 4, hexa, octa, icosa, and that's dodecahedron. And so those are the 5 platonic solids, and there isn't a 6th. You can mathematically
Oh.
prove it if you're someone who knows how to do that, which is not me.
Nope.
Okay, so this gets us through shape at the atomic level, right? 'Cause
Shape at the atomic level. Yep.
so
Shape
much
means
of
everything. It's all energy and space.
yes,
And organizing mass through energy and space with the energy that surrounds mass, because you can't get away from that. It goes
Yeah.
all the way to gravity.
Yeah.
All the way down to hydrogen and oxygen and sodium and chlorine. And there's all this order in that. And they balance and create these different forms between solid, liquids, and gases for all these different things.
totally.
Totally. All the way to gravity wells, because they're so
Oh,
heavy, and then planets slinging around each other around the sun. It
have
goes
you seen
all the way to
Interstellar? Have
that.
you did see Interstellar? We talked
Yeah,
about this once
a
before.
while, yeah, I haven't
There's a-
seen it recently, but yeah.
There's a book called The Science of Interstellar written by Kip Thorne, which we should deep dive into, because what is so cool about the science behind Interstellar and then the movie itself, which illustrates the science that it's based on, like it goes that way. The science came first, then the script came, then the movie came. And it's
Damn,
such a,
really?
yeah, it's a $330
Wow.
million physics teaching tool, the movie Interstellar. And the guidebook is called The Science of Interstellar by Kip Thorne. It's fucking amazing. But what it shows you is it shows you the Newtonian view of the universe, and then it shows you the Einsteinian view of the universe with time and space, and then it shows you the quantum and higher dimensional kind of places in the universe. And then that all gets illustrated in the movie itself. Anyway, it makes for a really fun conversation about the different phases that we've gone through in terms of our understanding of the actual way that,
Yeah.
like you're talking about,
And
gravity,
how
space,
that
and time are arranged.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes
How
for a
that
fun fucking conversation.
the symphony of dimensions that make up reality.
Totally.
Totally.
So, Scooby Dooby Doo, where are you?
Where are you?
So like if we see this echo of all these shapes out from the atomic level, sometimes we see it at the macroscopic level. And really you just talked about it quite a bit, but the whole idea is there is these shapes are like little linkages that hold the atoms together. H2O is 2 hydrogens and an oxygen. And the reason why that happens is because the hydrogens would like another electron, the oxygen would like another electron to fill out these orbital shells.
Yeah.
So these orbital shells have they build to a stable configuration, and they like that stable configuration.
Octets.
Yeah,
Octet, the 2 missing electrons that the
Mhm.
oxygen needs to fill it.
it attracts those hydrogens and it bonds.
To fill the last 2 orbitals in its outer orbital.
And this is a whole bunch of
grabs the 2 hydrogens. And
this is a whole bunch of that
electrons.
chemistry. It's
Yep,
like
right
it's like
there.
the air that I'm breathing that has a little oxygen in it and hydrogen in it is not
Mhm.
bonded the same way
No,
as
not-
this stuff
nope.
is. Same stuff, but there's
Yep.
just different
Yeah.
kinds of bonds. So these bonds and add all this complexity to the thing here. And what ends up this is the property of E, or of the spirit of electricity that we can perceive at our level. This is one part of it. This is magnetism. So
Mhm.
if you take like iron filings, and the iron is an atom that responds to the electrical flow, and there we'll talk about why this is. And So you take iron filings, you take an iron magnet, you put a piece of paper between it, you put the filings on it, it'll make this kind of arrangement. And you're seeing that toroidal north-south magnetic pole shape again. This is how E is the energy is flowing through matter, is in this shape
Through that matter.
through that matter.
Yeah.
And this is how you make this is how you make electricity. You've got what you have are like copper atoms. And copper atoms are basically donating this extra electron that they have. They've got this electron that's very
They can hold a charge and
yeah.
let it go.
And what that means is that there is this, when you have a bunch of copper atoms, like you have a piece of
Yeah.
copper, you've got this E around it that really wants to move here. And if you go back to your oh man, I'm gonna have to find copper on here. Is that it? Cobalt
Cu.
right there. You'll notice that copper has a couple of cousins, silver and
Mhm.
gold. And so what you end up
Conductors.
conductors. These
Yeah.
number of electrons in these particular shapes, that certain shapes, there's a shape echo from one level to the next level that
Mhm.
they basically have this extra electron that they like to donate. So the best conductor, gold.
Yeah.
Or and then there's superconductors, which are chilled metals that have this extra that'll
Chilled
it in other ways.
metals aggregated in gels and stuff. All
Dude, have we ever talked about dark? Have we ever talked about
No.
dark? Is a
Oh yeah, we did talk
Yeah.
about dark. Yeah,
It-
it's the
Did you ever see? Have you ever seen Dark?
I have seen dark. Yeah.
Dude, you watch the whole thing?
Yeah.
Oh
Mhm.
fuck! Okay. You know how there's 3 worlds in Dark?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a direct lift from this one thing. So in that Tevatron out in Batavia, Illinois, which is that collider that was like colliding at an energy.
Right.
The one in Switzerland goes up to like 16x that or something. I forget it is a much higher octave of energy. And here's this weird thing that happens. We are a family of matter, a family of protons, a family of electrons, a family of neutrons. You and I, we're in this family.
This
If you increase the energy to these astronomical levels in these colliders, you actually have other particles that warp into existence.
differentiate.
And there's a higher level and a lower level of, is it higher or lower, or there are different weights. There's at least 2 more octaves of matter. So if you were in the middle of a super energetic event, which doesn't actually exist in the natural world, we make an event that doesn't exist in the natural world.
Right.
And when we do that, we see a shadow of another level of protons, electrons, and neutrons.
Shadow,
Yeah. And not only that family, but all the family. There's another neutrino family, and there's another tau particle family. I forget that third one. It's always confusing to me. But anyway, there's 3 here, and then there's 3 at the next level. And if you really amp up the juice, you can get 3 at the next level. But they don't know everything about them because they're really hard to make and they don't happen very often. But that in Dark, where there's the 3 worlds, to me that seems like it's based on the 3 levels of matter
Well,
in
they're playing with 3 generations too.
That's it. And 3 generations of people. Exactly, dude. You're so right. Did you ever get sucked into Lost or have to watch Lost for any reason?
No, I have to. No, but I had friends who were like, my roommate in college. He was like, "Don't start ever. Just
Ever.
don't do it. Yeah, just don't do it." And I just like, all right.
There's a show on Netflix right now called Manifest, and I read 2 lines of a review, and it answered every question I had about the show because I almost watched it one time. And it was like, listen, if you're familiar with Lost, you'll be familiar with what's happening here. They have a weird phenomenon in the first season. They can't explain it. They don't really know what's going on, and then the show gets canceled after 2 seasons, so you'll never know what it is. I'm like, that's all I ever
Perfect.
needed to know about that story. It'll
Yeah.
never fucking finish. So that's a terrible story. It's a
Yeah,
terrible
it's a
story.
terrible story.
Dark
just
is
confusion. Yeah.
Dark
Yeah,
is a non-terrible
Mhm.
story. It is a Swiss watch, and every single atom is accounted for in the equation.
Yes.
And it is a beautiful piece of narrative with that.
Yes.
You know,
And it is a chunk of narrative as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
a beautiful chunk of crossing narratives
As-
through time.
so it's kind of weird when you get down to this level, but really all electricity is electricity, like the stuff that's running our computers, that is running your lights, it's doing all electric, making heat, making toast. It's all the same stuff. It's the same stuff everywhere. This this movement of electricity, you can make it two ways. You can have the magnet, which has this field, you're going to pass a conductor, which is a like copper or silver
Through
or
it.
gold.
Yeah.
And when you do that, this sea of electrons is going to want to move in a certain direction. You can move the conductor, or in a pinch, you can move the magnet. You get to decide, but it's the same effect. You create a flow, like a flow of water, through this kind of a thing. And that is how a very simple engine works. You can, this is that's a different one. But this, for example, you would turn this crank, and it's gonna, actually, that's it, perfect. I'm gonna change it though.
That Duracell battery is a good example of that spinning thing.
Totally.
That's a great example.
That is electrical potential. Those are my hands. That was one of my student. We would make these when we talk about electricity in person. These are very easily to make. But what you need is a source of energy, which is the battery. And then you need a conductor here, and you strip off a little bit of wire. What you're seeing is the movement of the energy through that system physicalized, because it switches, and you put little magnets on the side, and that positive negative pole switches back and forth, and you have a little engine here. And the only thing you need to do to turn the electricity back into magnetism is like over here, you basically pass that electrical current through the cable, through the copper, and then it will turn iron back into a magnet. So that's how you make an electromagnet. So
it aligns all of the metal.
Yeah.
Inside, it aligns all of the ions in the metal to create a magnet.
Totally
Crazy.
And this is okay. So
solid.
This is where it gets useful for humans. This is where we start to see like value in this stuff. And so and you get the first machines that take advantage of these properties, right? Probably one of this guy, Nikola Tesla, super famous for this. He came out to Colorado, which is the best place ever. And he came out and he pinned down some of his ideas about electrical theory out here. And he would create these giant machines that would just show off electrical potential.
Yeah.
Just like, I control lightning, I am Thor, kind of shit.
Yeah.
Super impressive. You ever been around one of these when they crackle?
I have seen them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a snap. It's like
music.
Pow! Exactly.
Yeah.
It's an explosion of sound. Sounds 3D in an explosion, because it heated up to like 4 times the temperature of the sun, the surface temperature of the sun, and that air got displaced, and that's what you're hearing. Is you're hearing the sound of plasma being produced.
Yeah. And then the resounding sound of air refilling that space. And
The clap.
The clap of the air filling the space that the plasma pushed the air out of the way. Yeah.
It's like, that's that whole thing. He would around his lab, he would convert electricity into magnetism in like all these different experiments. And one of his some of them were captured, some of them went down in legend. But this was one where he created a powerful ass magnetic field, and then he would leave these lights out in the yard, and the lights would basically, because they're in a magnetic field and there's an E moving, they are coils of copper, and that produces a current. As long as you're in the field, it'll light a light. So he would hand these lights to people.
These fields, and then hand them a light. And be
what the fuck?
Turn on a light that's on, just
on,
connected to anything.
And this was the it's the same principle as in an electric toothbrush. So you have an electric toothbrush, and have you ever had one electric toothbrush?
Yes.
You got a little base, right? You put it on the base, and then you take it off the base, you get in the shower, you can use it in the shower, no one dies. Yeah. Why does no one die? Because it's plastically sealed, and there is a coil of wire in the base, and then there's another coil of wire in the other base, and the electricity in that one turns into magnetism, a magnetic field that is conducted, and it turns it back into electricity on the other side. So this is charging station technology with your cell phones.
But these little things do.
Exactly. It's induction charging. What Tesla wanted to do was induction charge everything. So he put one of these engines in the back of like a naval ship, and he turned off the regular engine. He drove it around the bay with this giant ass magnetic field. There's people that he never got his way with his shit, and they ended up using. They didn't use. We don't power cities with giant magnetic fields.
Magnetic fields, yeah.
There's people that say like, if you did do that, all of our electronics wouldn't work. Can you imagine how fucked up your electronics would be? You know, like you ever seen those in movies where they're like blank
Too
videotapes?
much. Yeah.
It would be like blanking your videotape every
Yeah.
0.3 seconds all the
Yeah,
time.
all of your like cards and stuff would get wiped.
Everything.
Those are all they use magnets to store information on.
Totally. The next part of our story, it happens in Telluride, Colorado. I actually got a chance to take a what do you call those? Mobile. I got a chance to take a snowmobile up to this one. This is kind of like it. This you see all the time. These are mines all over Colorado, but this one's actually not in Colorado, but they look just like this. They are openings in the earth where,
I've
and
seen
this
some
is
of those in California too.
these are tailings piles. This is a tailings pile is whatever you take out of the earth comes out. And like, for example, down in Durango, I used to live about 90 minutes away from Durango. When you went, if you got a Geiger counter, when you came over the first set of mountains in Durango, your Geiger counter goes, it's like, wait, what? They were digging uranium out of the ground there, and it's still radioactive.
Still there. Oh my god.
The shit that was put underground is underground for a
reason, bro.
And every time you change the layers,
that's why Elon Musk is building electric cars so we don't burn fossil fuels because it belongs down there.
Yeah. So like, anytime you take shit from one layer and put it on another, you cause a problem. You poison a river.
Yeah.
It's like, there's lead in the river. You know, it's like, well, it was safely buried underground for a really long time, and someone decided to bring it up. So maybe that's their bad.
It's a balance. It's a balance here. That's why mining is so such a
intensive.
That's what we're trying to. We're saying, make electric cars, but then we have to mine cobalt, zinc, and nickel, and
conflict metals and all this other stuff. You know, most of the mining around the world is done by kids. Maybe most is not the right word in that sentence, but a heck of a lot of it happens by exactly like what you're saying. Imagine how much that would suck to be underground with your shit's shantily done because you and your friends did it, and maybe you're like teenagers, and like hopefully it's all good. But boy, these people have shorter lives, and
they do.
They use a lot of donkeys. And Tesla, when he rolled up on the gold mine in Telluride, Colorado, he was seeing this donkey situation. And this donkey situation was like, hey, we got to take these donkeys underground. Guess who doesn't want to be underground? Fucking donkey.
Yeah.
like a donkey goes to the bathroom, you're gonna have poop, epi, and everything all over the place. You have to bring down food for donkeys when there's loud noises underground. These donkeys don't like them. Imagine how fucked up it is. God damn it! It's hard enough to go underground, but now you're taking a team of donkeys with you. Like, God, what? Like, so this is the engineering problem that that Tesla found, and this is in 1891.
Cars.
That what they were doing is they set up at the Gold King mine, Turkey Creek Basin near Telluride, and there was animals and donkeys and everything. And what he did is, on one end of the equation, he set up a collector. There's a falls that if you go to Telluride, it's beautiful. Okay. All of the houses are like 2/3 as big as a normal house. It looks like you're in a doll city because they're all shrunk down because the real estate is just this one little piece of ground, and it's not a lot of land, so it's very expensive. And these little and all the houses are super tiny houses, tiny houses. Yeah, and if you go to the end of the valley, you'll see this giant waterfall. I can't remember the name of it, but what he did is he put a paddle wheel there, and the paddle wheel turned a giant set of
magnet
of conductors around a coil, inside of a coil, and that was the generation side. And then he strung wires, transmission wires, 2.6 miles or something to the other side. And they did experiments where the exact rotation on one side would be the rotation on the other. And so think about what that means. You've just taken motion that nature made by evaporating water that turned into rain, that froze at a high altitude, that was snow, that melted. Glaciers could be thousands of years old, but this is just snow. It comes down off of the mountains. It goes over this thing. It turns the wheel. And that motion that you've captured from nature, now you can move that and you can play back. You can hit play at the distant point and get motion. Woo. And so so what you do with this is you set up a pole.
Whee!
You set up a pole system that goes down into the mine, and you have buckets. And now this machine can turn the buckets. No more donkeys. Do you know how much easier it is to mine shit without the donkeys?
Hey, you know how yeah, dude, how easier is to mine shit? How much easier is to quarry shit? How much easier?
Yeah, but donkey employment goes down, baby, because you
Down.
just automated out those donkeys.
Well,
We're all donkeys, okay? We're all.
yeah, in this equation, we're all donkeys.
You will be. You will. The
Coming for you.
but that. But it also opened up a new. This is a good example
Yeah.
of how it opens up a new possibility. So now
New
you don't need
possibility.
donkey wranglers. You
Yeah.
just need people that know how to
Learn
run
to
transmission.
code.
Learn to code. Learn to code 1871 or whatever.
Yeah.
Learn to code 1891.
Yeah.
It's exactly right. So this transmission of energy, this forms the first proof of concept, and it travels like wildfire. There's this thing called a World Fair, and this is the 1893 Chicago World Fair, and they illumined this using this current transmission method, and the whole world saw it. And with like toot sweet, everybody's like, "Give me some of that goodness."
Good light.
And now you can observe the Earth from space, and you
Yeah.
can see us just wasting this energy out. We're like a
Yeah.
Christmas tree. We're just like,
Christmas
"Hello,
tree, we're
universe.
like,
We're
"Yay,
glowing.
here."
We're glowing." That's right. We're here.
Dude, I like seeing this atmosphere in this picture too.
Yeah,
Cool.
that is the
Look at
electromagnetic.
the light bending
Vib-
around the atmosphere.
Totally. That is the aurora
Blue and
borealis.
green.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
What, over
looks like
what land is that?
that is
that-
Italy. That is the
Italy?
Straits of Gibraltar there, I believe.
Okay.
I think not Italy. What is that? Spain. Spain. Shit.
Spain.
I just insulted a huge number of Europeans.
They're
They're like, "Oh,
What's-
American."
American ass over here didn't
I
even,
think
couldn't
it's-
even
I
tell what it
think,
was because
yeah.
I don't.
That's the
I don't
Suez
know
Canal over there.
geography-
Like that's the Suez
geography
Canal over
very
there.
well.
That's Spain. Let's. You know what? This would be an example of where we would look this shit up. Okay. Span map. Oh.
Yeah. Look at that. Looks right.
Looks
That
right.
mass looks right.
Yeah, I think we're there. I think we're there. I think we're seeing this, and I think we're seeing that over
Yeah.
there, and I think that's what's happening here.
Yeah.
That's the situation that's presenting
That's the
itself.
situation. You got 1, 2, 3 knobs here. Whoa,
Oh.
what are you doing?
That's my
Playing
desktop.
around.
That's my desktop.
Look pretty.
Everything's off. Everything's off. Crash, burn, crash, burn.
Yeah, see, that's the same.
You're
It's
right.
the same. It's definitely
Okay.
Spain.
Okay, so we can see a little France there, is what I hear us saying. That this
Mhm.
northern piece up here, this is France. Lords and Mother Mary is somewhere up there.
There she
Okay,
is.
there she is somewhere. So you get this situation where you take water, which likes to flow downhill,
It likes to find
the lowest point.
gravity.
That's because of the natural cycle of air evaporating and then falling at higher altitudes.
Uh-huh.
You get these turbines. Here's a little person for perspective. These giant motherfucking turbines here turn.
Shout out to TVA out here in our good old state of Tennessee, the best in the
turbine
brightest of-
generation situations.
Yep.
That's wonderful.
For
That's smart.
Well, hydropower.
Yeah.
Nuclear power. All.
Yeah.
There's the quintessential American like power company.
I love it. That's
harnessing power from the elements.
taking the smallest amount of natural input, be it sunlight or water moving or the earth producing energy, geothermal or whatever it is, nuclear, the splitting of atoms, or the combining of atoms or the decaying of atoms. Naturally, there's over 200 ways of doing nuclear fission, the splitting of atoms. There's over 200 ways to do it, and we decided to do uranium and plutonium because the downstream products of that are nuclear bombs. So our entire nuclear program in America since the 50s has been about nuclear bomb generation shit. And you can do other stuff like thorium. And thorium is a safe nuclear power that no one would object to if they really understood the physics behind it, because it's like hot salt in your neighborhood.
Hot
It's
salt.
if it
Huh.
boils over, it like freezes. It's a salt block, and a specialist has to come and melt your salt block. But it's not a big deal. It doesn't kill your kids, basically.
Shit. Well, let's how do we get
Thorium.
some batteries made out of that?
The Chinese are making thorium reactors these days, so we might see some
Really?
commercial thorium. Yeah, they're going for it. But we should do a deep dive into thorium. Thorium is a naturally
let's do
occurring
it.
element. Like your yard in front of your house definitely has thorium in it. And
Wild.
yeah, mine too. Everybody's. It's like it's
Yeah.
fucking everywhere. And when
It's
you
like
find
DMT.
it's
Is
every
it inside
exactly.
me?
It's the DMT of the Earth. The thorium is the DMT of the physics world, of the sediment layer world. Um,
Cool.
so okay, so think about the size of this shit and how much magnet you're turning. It's a
Yeah,
lot, okay,
heavy.
heavy duty, and that goes up to a generator, and then it transmits power, and that is how you get that's how you get heat power. Here's how nuclear power
Mhm.
works. Nuclear, you split an atom, which basically makes heat, just like your goddamn toaster or a log you light on fire. It's just really a lot of it. It lasts a
Yeah.
long fucking time.
Slow.
use-
Sustained.
You heat that water,
Constant.
you get some steam. That steam rises and turns a turbine, which turns a magnet around some conductors and makes electricity. So it's all about ways of getting back to the same thing. This is, of course, another look at energy, because energy presents itself as waves. And you and I, we were looking at this one before. A wave is really a two-dimensional representation of a three-dimensional event. We write waves like this with waves with lots of repetition, like this little blue here. That's a high energy wave. The more
Right.
repetition, the more energy it has.
Yep.
A larger
Higher
wave,
frequency sound.
higher frequency sound. Yeah.
A higher tone versus a.
Down here, you've got radio waves that are
Low
the size of
tone.
buildings. 10 to the eighth gets you humans. 10 to the -2 gets you a microwave. Butterflies are in here. A needle point is observable by the physical eye, and that's 10 to the -5. 10 to the -6 gets you protozoan, so that's just below what we can see, the living shit in water, the stuff that swims around. You got ultraviolet light, and that's at the molecular level, X-ray light at the atomic level, and then gamma ray light. The fastest light you can get is like individual protons coming at you, which you don't want, because that's too much energy. You can also see this is what temperature looks like in color. So these are suns. So our sun is right in here in terms of its surface temperature, but you get blue suns, you get more red suns. This, and you and I, we've already talked about this before, but this is the spectrum of light in visual light, and this is what we can see. And the reason we can see this in these proportions is because that's the transmission of these frequencies here, these wavelengths through water.
It's the color.
Yeah,
we can see.
You can. That's the only frequencies you can see underwater, and that's not what our eyes are adapted for. So our eyes grew up in a certain
liquid environment.
Liquid environment.
Would that be amniotic fluid or what? I don't know.
One of my favorite ways of kind of drawing this all together is to get back into the heart math. So with the heart math and with that coherent heart rate that heart math sensor detects, you can basically do this balancing act in your life where you try to stay in coherence as much as you can. When you stay in coherence as much as you can, or 5 minutes a day to start with, build up to 20 or 30 minutes, the natural field that your body and your heart make becomes even and full. And people perceive this as being kind of, I don't know, maybe it's generous, or you've got a lot of life moving through you. You've got a lot of goodwill. It's just love. I mean, you basically have an excess of love. Yeah. This is a positive thing. When you see appreciation, gratitude, and where it comes from hormonally is when you are in that state, that coherent heart state, your heart is producing oxytocin. Oxytocin is the bonding chemical between mother and child, father and child. Yeah. It's what bonds families together. And so you focus on your heart, you breathe through your heart in a 5-second rhythm, and you focus, flow, and feeling, and then you invoke a feeling. And the feeling you're invoking is kind of like you are squeezing that gland, that oxytocin gland of your heart, really to produce that. If it's cat photos, like the feeling you get when you watch little cute baby animals frolicking, it's like, it's a heartwarming feeling, right?
He does the Scooby-Doo sound.
I totally did. I was like, it's kind of good for a closing and an opening in that case, right? Yeah. That's there's this philosophy of
the
classroom
frolic
management.
Of the children.
There's a philosophy children. Of gather round, stoner children. there's this philosophy of school classroom management. It's called attachment-based teaching, and you basically try to create that oxytocin bond in group, out group, and
Uh-huh.
that helps young children especially to know, okay, now I'm in my place, and now I'm in my group, and this is what I'm supposed to
Yeah,
do,
this
and
is what I'm doing. Yeah,
yeah,
create
yeah,
the designated like purpose inside
to,
of
yes,
modes.
structure, exactly. It helps them.
Creating modes
Yes,
for.
it puts them in this receptive, good receptive state to make the bond and stuff. So that heart math practice, it's about, not only is it about having regular breath, which has all these benefits throughout the body, but
Mm.
particularly when that oxytocin is being produced, the vagus nerve opens, and the vagus nerve connects the heart to the base of the brain. And when that opens, it is a you feel like you could do anything, like you have superpowers, like you could move any mountain, you could overcome any problem, because you really can. It's kind of like a state of pure inspiration. I had a really powerful vagus nerve opening one time when I was watching a documentary about fires in California. And my house had we had a fire happen just in the one mountain over, and it was this total miracle that this like literal rainstorm. It was a clear day. There's a fire within like less than a mile and a half from my house, and this rainstorm came in from over the mountains, parked on the mountain for 25 minutes, put out the fire along with a lot of firefighters dropping a lot of fire retardant and a whole bunch of, but really helped
Uh-huh.
the situation. And then it was actually under control after that point. It was this total fucking miracle I witnessed in my yard. I was praying my
Yeah.
ass off like while it was happening. But like it was
Calling in the
so,
clouds.
well, a lot of people were in the neighborhood. It was a lot of, there was a lot of like, oh my god, we haven't had a fire like this in Evergreen in like 45 years, and here it is. So anyway, I went through this very intense trauma with my family. I thought our house was going to burn down. I was like, god damn it, it's taken me so long to get this lab built. Like, I get to start over. I'm gonna have to start over from scratch. How long will it take me to get back to the place where I was, where I could make the art I was making there? I was like, God, it was just gonna. I prayed, then I prayed my ass off. I was
Yeah,
like,
I was
that would
like,
suck.
please, please, please.
Totally. If you want to see it, I actually, it's not embarrassing, but I'm praying out loud the rosary on my Instagram feed, and you can see the fire, and then you'll hear me praying, but you can see it come in and cover the mountain in a series of videos. I had just installed Instagram like the day before, and I was like, oh, I could use this, and so I made like
Document on here.
yeah, 15 little mini 1 minute videos, but it was, you kind of get a time lapse that kind of shows you what it was like that day.
That's cool.
You can kind of see it happening. It's crazy. It was captured. But long story short, I am watching this documentary about the California wildfires, and I'm watching these people lose their homes, and my vagus nerve opens for them, and I'm just like, oh my god, I know exactly what the fuck you're talking. It's the worst. And it was like, I would have given them money. I would have done anything for them. If I was in the environment, I'd be like, run into that house, get some cat. Okay. Like it would, it's this courageous feeling of being filled with the power to change something right now. And
Mm,
and and it's also informed. It's not random. It's like there's neurons around the heart, and it's like when the vagus nerve opens, it's like the brain starts receiving the consciousness that is literally wired around the heart with a
yeah.
neuronal field, like the wisdom of the heart. It starts to run that software, and that software is like what society is. What actually makes us function as a
Yeah.
team rather
What
than
is
a
the
bunch of
resonance
individuals.
of the we telling me?
Yes,
I can
yes,
kind of relate to that.
yeah,
Your
yeah.
intuition and positive intention
So
from your love.
the more that you practice that, the heart math, the more aware of this influence, this give receive that is happening between you and everybody around you. It's this it's kind of like it's a pattern. When you're practicing a coherent heart state, you are in this bottom set here. This is called heart rate variability, and this is what normal, or a normal HRV, or someone who's incoherence looks like, and this is what someone who's stressed out looks like up above there. And what this is measuring is beats per second. So a healthy heart goes, and the greater the range and the greater the speed it moves between that range, the healthier the person feels. So if you measure your heart rate, resting heart rate variability, and it's like, wow, you're going to be like, yeah, let's like go do something. Let's get, it's just, you've got access to your systems are aligned. at a bunch of
Mhm.
levels, but one of the levels they're aligned at is biochemically. Biochemically, with your heart producing oxytocin, your entire being is being flooded with an extremely positive state, love essentially. And that love state is a very potent creative state. That is the state that like life comes from. So it's when you're talking about reproduction, like making the next generation, all this kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So if you're stressed out and your heart rate is not going do 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 do, instead it's going it's like it's fucking up, right?
It's fucking up. It's all over the place. It's inconsistent.
Inconsistent.
Your your emotions are modulating your heart rate too much.
Your power station, the power
Yeah.
station that's providing energy that your thoughts are running on, is putting out garbage, and
Yeah,
that
garbage noise frequency.
garbage noise frequency, and
Yeah.
that means you're having harsh, terrible thoughts, and nothing is sticking together, and
And
you
you
can't
can
pattern over time.
watch that on the heart math.
Yeah,
As you thoughts come into your head, it'll jack up your rhythm.
jack up your rhythm.
Yeah, it
Totally.
will.
100%.
It's very tactile in your ability to see how you're fucking it up.
It's a nice
And it's
feedback system.
interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
it's amazing feedback. Is interesting, like watching the spectrum, because the spectrum will tell you right whether like you'll know
Yeah.
you'll be able to see in the spectrum and know when you're. I think the spectrum, when the spectrum is like around that 0.1 hertz and
Yeah.
peaking,
Yeah.
like over 1500 to 2000, you're like in the sevens of coherence.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Oh my God.
a
How does that feel?
that feels, you can totally feel like that. It's hard
Yes.
to sustain that because
Yes.
especially since I'm like learning how to
Yeah. Totally.
get there,
Yep.
and so it'll drop out easily.
Yep. Yep.
but but then it's also interesting that I've been able to move the hertz, the spectrum, like down or up.
With
A
your
little.
intention.
Yeah, with my
Yeah.
intention, I can push it or draw it toward my head, off of the one. But it seems to only like reach the highest spectrum peaks on around the heart. So.
I got trained as a heart math trainer in
Mhm.
2019. I basically took the highest level of training that they were offering as a comprehensive course. They have little specialties that you can add to it. But I took this training. It was 5 days, and I was with the heart math folk in their beautiful place in California in the redwoods. And the heart
Wow,
math,
in the redwoods. Cool.
these giant
Amongst the
ass
giant
living
trees.
trees have their own
The
patterns of breath,
the
and these guys are
intellect.
breathing with them. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's wild, dude. It's so wild.
Intellect of old
Yeah,
ass trees.
old ass trees. And
The
so I'm
forest of wisdom.
it's you're just like reading the book of that place. Like that's a lot of what it is. They are going into that coherent state as a community there for long periods of time, days on end, and they are bringing back insights that then they translate into physical science. And the translation happens on the institute, the org side, heartmath.org. And there's this guy named Roland McCready, and he's got this awesome book called The Science of the Heart. I had him sign this for me one time. the
Nice.
when I met him, because this is a collection of all the little white papers and all the science that goes into heart math, and it is quite the thing. It is quite the very beautiful. It's really beautiful to watch someone over time pour their heart and soul into a pursuit.
It's a collection of all that stuff.
Yeah, totally. And so you've got all these. I do this whole. We'll go over this all with when we've got Bruno back. But this book is available for free online, The Science of the Heart, through the Heart Math Institute. And these are all the white papers that essentially prove the various scientific claims that are then translated into the training side. So heartmath.com trains people in the stuff that gets done. So this is, there's stuff about schools, there's stuff about kids, there's stuff about all these different environments that they studied. This one thing comes back over and over again, and that's the social element. So they do this experiment where you have like 4 people Actually what they do is they've got 40 people and they have these groups, 10 groups of 4. And 3 of the people have learned heart math for 2 weeks or less. And one of the people is not doing heart math or has never heard of heart math. And so what happens is the other 3 get together and they get into coherence and they have heart rate monitors on where you can see the heart rate of the person in the moment.
What? One of these?
One of those. And this is me running the session here while I'm talking to you. So it's going to be a little rough here because when you move or make sound, you produce electromagnetic activity. And this little sensor, it kind of fucks it up. So it's much easier to do it if you're not talking. It's also, but like yourself, I played with this thing for so long, I figured out a way to do it stoned. When I was stoned, when you're high, cannabis like makes your heart rate running a little bit faster.
Yeah.
So, but there's a way to breathe through the 5-second rhythms to stay in coherence. Anyway, I'll teach you the cannabis method at some point.
The cannabis method?
Yeah. There's
you're just gonna shift your variability around, different. I don't know. I wonder how many times I've done it sober versus stoned.
If you learned it stoned from the beginning, you'd be fine. You could just learn it through the whole thing. Yeah. It's the same thing with driving cars. People are always like, oh, what happens when people are stoned and they drive their cars? There's this really cool documentary called The State of the Union, which is about a unofficial union of cannabis growers up in British Columbia, I believe, or maybe it's British Columbia area. And Joe Rogan is interviewed in it, and they talk about they interview a Canadian state trooper who patrols the highways. He goes, yeah, I've been rolling up on accidents for like 45 years, and in like 99% of the time there's alcohol involved, and not one wreck I ever rolled up on in 45 years is because of fucking cannabis. So we're not worried about cannabis out here. We're worried definitely about alcohol. That's the one you watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's like there's like watching, like starting to smoke weed and being around other kids that are, similar age as me, driving and introducing cannabis. There's like tears to people as they like start smoking and get used to driving. But then after, like,
you're right. There's a learning curve. It takes you gotta learn it. Yeah. I remember the first time I had this kind of girlfriend, and she was really sweet, and she was a couple years older than me in high school. And one night we were out doing something all night. I can't remember, we were out with a bunch of friends, and she was taking me home. I was gonna get grounded. I was like, fuck it. And she was like, hey man, do you want to like drive this car? And I was like, I'd never thought about driving the car before. I had never driven a car before. I was like, sure. And I drove literally just down one street, turned, and went up another street. It was a very short distance, and it was like at like 3 or 4 a.m. So there was no one in my residential area. It was super fucking safe. She was very smart. But I remember going like white knuckling that shit, and it was like tunnel vision. And it was all I could do to apply the brake correctly. And I think I might have been sober.
Yeah.
So it's like whenever you're doing something new, you're learning it. You're like your consciousness changes quite a bit when you're learning. But I found the same thing. I found that I had a girlfriend later who loved to drive high, and when she would just get high and she'd drive her car around, she'd stop at every stop sign, she'd wave at every little lady, she'd listen to like oldies on her radio station, and she would just take it all in. And she was the safest driver she was going 15 in a 15 zone. Like, who does that? It was lost my Peter. But anyway, that's a story for another time. I'm going to freeze this thing.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend in high school, she loved to drive high, and she basically would get a little bit high, just a little bit high, and she would drive, and she would like basically teach herself how to do it stoned. But once she learned how to drive stoned, she was like the safest driver you'd ever run into.
Yeah.
Always giving the right of way, always following all the stoplights, always following the stop signs, and joyfully doing so. Like just rather than being some kind of terrifying demon running down the highway, like I hate everything. It's like the opposite of that. So when we had a very smooth.
You're very conscious of your speed.
You're aware of your surroundings. You're looking door to door. You're literally focused on the physical act of driving the whole time. Which who can say that when they're sober and like drinking caffeine and like texting and it's like that's way more the fuck dangerous than alcohol. You're 3 times distracted driving is 3 times worse than being fucking dead drunk. in terms of accidents. So anyway,
Yeah.
cannabis and everything turned
Rear-ending
off.
people, fender benders all over the place.
Dude, you can learn how to drive high. And that's the point that Chris Ryan was always making. That essentially they do these studies where if you take someone who has driven high quite a bit and you give them a test when they're sober, and they say this is their baseline of driving, then you get them high, and this is the change. There's no change. They essentially are used to drive. They know how to drive high, and so when you get them high and they make them drive, they pull it off just fine. They follow the laws. They make the right merges. They are aware of their environment. They're fine.
I think it makes your distracted driving better too, because it's
You turn off that shit.
subconscious.
Yeah.
Subconscious. It becomes subconscious for you.
You become aware more of what's happening in the subconscious. So you're not
paying attention.
Yeah,
you're the flow of driving.
It can be fun.
And what's happening and what's coming in. You're like the cues you're tuned into cues.
Yes.
Naturally more, I'd say.
And you're a kinder driver. And I don't need anyone to prove this to me because I saw it myself. When in 2014, when we legalized cannabis in Colorado, we had an influx of sometimes as high as 4,000 people a week moving to Colorado. A lot of them moved to the Denver area. All of our roads got saturated. We had gridlock traffic. There were so many people here that were all flooding in, and from all over the world. And dude, when you got stuck in one of those, you hoped people were smoking weed in their cars because like, it's not that they were going to be a more dangerous driver. It's they're going to be kinder and there's going to be a better vibe on the road as you're all going super fucking slow.
Be everyone driving into Oakland.
People are like, okay, we're in a traffic jam. It's all going to be good, and which is what you want a certain number of those people on the road as like little sponges to soak up the anxiety fueled super adrenaline that coffee drinkers are like pumping out, like the sober ones. It's like, Jesus Christ, they're the sometimes the worst. They're the worst citizens on the road. Exactly, they're the ones
animalistic.
No one's getting high and like that's not happening, and that happens all the time on a ton of other things.
All the other things.
Cigarettes, coffee, caffeine, alcohol are all that behavior. That's the shit you do. Yeah, meth. Yeah, the worst. Right. Adderall. It's like all these teenagers on Adderall and shit like this. So anyway, so that was what Chris Ryan was saying, that if someone has never driven high before and you give them a baseline test that you get them high, of course they can't fucking drive. They're fucking stoned. They're like, they're not you. They're like, I can't figure it out. It's like that first time I drove that car. It's like you tunnel vision. You're relearning something. So you can learn things while you're high that you then can perform while you're high. And it's just like any other skill set. And you have high tasks and you have non-high tasks. And you basically can separate. And it's like a technology like anything else. And you can leverage that.
Time technology too, for how you organizing your time.
Yep.
And how you can employ creativity into your time.
You can have
very nice way.
Very nice way. Exactly.
Fun.
So back to this heart math. Hold on. Oh shoot. Back to this heart math. You don't have to hold on. This is when you're in this coherent state. This is this is time, and this is beats per minute. So if you're down here at 65, 82 beats per minute, that regular wave, when you start seeing it, you start feeling pretty good. You start getting into that coherent state. Focus, flow, and feeling. You're focusing on your heart, you feel your breath flowing through, and you generate the feeling of love. The quick coherence technique is the technique you want to learn from heart math. But that's the overarch of that's the mnemonic I use to remember it. But what ends up happening is you end up getting this coherent stream of electrical energy from the heart to the brain. Turns out that the brain, all the thoughts you're having, the electricity that you're having, that our thoughts starts in your heart. So it's like your heart your heart generates a wave, and then consciousness surfs on that wave. Yeah. And depending on what kind of wave your heart is giving you, if it's giving you a chaotic wave, like you're stressed out, you're not going to have a smooth thought process. Your thought process is going to mirror that electrical. It starts in the electrical. So you make that electrical signal nice and pure and stable, coherent, and you essentially flood your brain and your brainstem with a coherent state. And that actually facilitates connections and
Mm.
wholeness and sort of an evenness and feeling and a low rate of stress. It's a positive state, and it's you get in the state just through focus, flow, and feeling, just through what essentially look like basic yogic techniques.
Basic. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks, but heart
Looks
math has
like it.
HeartMath has a whole library of application of these techniques that forms their magnum opus of all the cool shit you could do with it. You can do planning and strategic planning, and you can go through all these processes that essentially integrate coherence at different stages and with different focuses while you're in that coherent state to different ends. But it's but each one is a little different. There's a little different. There's like some very subtle kind of nuancey kind of ways. But that coherent heart state is at the heart of it all. And if you practice it regularly, and this would be where you're always talking about exercise and moving and like getting the energy kind of flowing and stuff like that. Your natural field, this natural toroidal field of energy inside of you clears out, and it's more resonant. We were talking about shapes and all the levels and stuff like that. These shapes go out all the way, we've seen this before, to the planetary level. The Earth itself is one of these turning toroidal fields, and it's receiving input from the sun in terms of electromagnetic radiation. That's the big solar. The sun is like the heart of the solar system. The
Yeah.
Earth is like an organ in the body, receiving the pulses of energy from the heart as a timing mechanism. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that gets us back into our Tokorio model. And our Tokorio model, what we've been exploring there is that electrical nature of that Tokorio energy at the heart of it all. And when you enact that energy, when you maps.tokorio.com for an experiential version of this, when you enact the cool, inspiring shit that's flowing through you, and you do cool shit with other people, you essentially are harmonizing out into your social level. And if you can stay centered in your heart while you're doing it, you'll essentially be riding the carrier way of love, which is always the foundational principle of any community. That any group of people have to use this.
People,
yeah,
any team,
whatever you call it,
to coordinate.
Yeah.
At whatever level of efficiency they attain.
Totally.
Wow.
So yeah, there's tons of substacks like you could drop into that electrical thing. Like it would be super fun to do Interstellar. Like we could get into different types of quantum theory and different types of gravity, time space theory.
Go over Interstellar.
Totally.
That
Love it.
The whole science and everything.
100%.
Those three.
Yeah. And then watch the movie
models.
and like all of the different scenes in the movie are illustrative of different scientific principles. And the black hole in Interstellar, when they made that effect, it was like $100 million in visual effects, $130 million. It was the first time that the actual science of what we know about gravity, time, and light and space was applied to a visual effect. People just say black hole and they just go draw it from their imagination. But they actually did the calculations, the ray tracing of these photons, so that the black hole is so massive in this thing that it actually folds the light from the back into the front. And so you get this folded light bend. And then at one point in the movie, the ship they have goes really close to this light fold, and it like travels to this higher dimension inside the fold of this light, essentially. It's like in the same place, but at a higher dimension. Yeah, you get to see it. It's all very well done visually. The visual effects are fucking dope.
Yeah, I need to watch it again. So this will be good.
Totally.
This will be good. Although it probably just won't happen until like October.
All good. It's no problem. We've got plenty of time. We got tons of time. We'll schedule it appropriately so it's not stressful.
No, it's not that it's not stressful. It's just there's only so much time to get
through
all of everything.
I know. We're kind of building a backlog too.
Yeah.
So
and we have to figure out how to harness it to do what we want, to do the 1.1s.
I know.
All these trails.
We've also and we've got to get those faster. We can get through the order of the tiles, the better. Well, maybe next time we lasso Bruno, we'll get him into a session count. We'll get those all on the calendar so we can line them up.
Yeah, there you go.
Totally.
Work.
Nice.
Be easy.
Talk to you soon.
Yes, sir.
Talk to you soon.
Next time.
Till next time.